Perfect. Well, let's jump in. Today we are looking at and discussing, we'll do both, discuss and look at KPIs, scorecards, and those are the only two things you can call them. Anything else? Metrics. I don't know. What's the ETW word? Is it KPIs too? Yeah.
Drivers. We use drivers.
Drivers. Yeah, they'll use the term drivers. Welcome, Kimberly. Excited to have you here. We do have a Kimberly showing today.
All right. I was saying, I know you're in Erin's challenge, so I wasn't sure if we were gonna see you.
Yeah, no, I was here 5 minutes early. But I saw there was the video wasn't playing in the challenge. So I was just trying to alert the right people so they can get that up and going.
Mm-hmm.
They fixed it. It's going again.
Good.
It's all good. Yeah, I've been watching on Voxer, okay, and trying to open, but they figured it out. They got it.
Well, the one meeting or the one challenge event Savannah and I aren't in, they have troubles with. So we can make so many assumptions in this life, correlation or causation. We're not sure. We'll take it.
We're just good luck charms.
Perfect. So Kimberly had just mentioned our topic. We're going over KPIs and scorecards. At Pedro Deos, they're using ETW. They might use the term drivers. They also use KPIs there. KPI stands for key performance indicators, indicators that will let you know about your key performance. That's how that works. So we're going to be discussing that. We'll do a little go on a little field trip here too through one of our Google Sheets, because we love Google Sheets. They're applicable for everybody. They're free. Why not just build with them? So first, what are KPIs? What is the scorecard? Those are the numbers that you use to drive your mission, or whether to drive it or to evaluate how you're doing going towards your overall mission as a business. So in some of our previous sessions, we've discussed, the quarterly planning, the annual planning, kind of setting up your goals as a business each quarter, or you set them up as a year, you divide it by 4, you get your quarterly goals. And then now we're looking at, okay, now that we've got our goals, how do we track our progress? What do we use to make sure that we are on the right path to reaching these goals? Because goals are great, but if you don't end up tracking them, you can think you're either doing awesome and you're not, or you can think you're doing terrible and you are. So the next step is the scorecard. Erin briefly discussed the scorecard in our L10 meeting overview. It's one of the things you look at on a weekly basis. You have different people responsible for their key metrics. So they're the ones in charge of the data in a scorecard, so that it's their responsibility. And then you also can ensure that the data is accurate and you don't have to be the one responsible. As the leaders of the group of all the numbers, you can put other people in charge of the numbers that they have more insight into. Savannah, you do a lot of the CE scorecard for 100X. So they might not know how to grab those numbers, but they want the numbers and they want to be able to interpret them. Savannah's in the systems they use to grab the numbers. So she created the process on grabbing the numbers. Do you still do those, Savannah, or did you delegate those?
I delegated those actually to other team members who were trying to kind of up level in the category, so that everyone can we're just getting team a little bit more knowledgeable. So a note on that's another reason to have other team members fill out numbers, even if you can go and grab them all yourself. It might not take very much time, but the more that you have other team members kind of having little roles in your meeting, it gets everyone a little bit more engaged and it makes them feel more important, and it's going to help your meeting just go a little bit better. It just kind of I noticed that even if it's just a small responsibility, if you give everyone a little bit of responsibility, it really brings the team together and makes the meeting more successful.
Mm-hmm. And then even if you're not grabbing the numbers though, you're still responsible for calling them out as well as interpreting the data, right?
Right.
Yeah. So you want to find the expert of that app. Most of the numbers are coming from whatever apps you're using. Savannah's pulling numbers from Zendesk to populate their CE metrics. Savannah is more of the expert of that app. She might assign somebody else to grab the actual numbers, but when they start discussing their scorecard, it might be up to Savannah to then be the one who's the expert of this section to interpret the data for people that ask, because they might say, okay, I understand that's what the numbers say, but tell us, what does that mean exactly? But I do too. I've assigned out scorecard metrics to other people that aren't even in the meeting. If it's just an easy, like, hey, this is where you get the data. Can you just fill this out for me every week? But then it's still up to me to look at that scorecard, recite the numbers, and be able to tell what they mean, even if I'm not pulling them. So it's a fun little trick with the scorecard of, Kimberly might not be in all the systems, but she wants the numbers from all the systems. So she doesn't need to be the one to go and grab it, but let's utilize the experts of those systems. We've got the format of our weekly L10s. We've got the scorecard tracker. So let's have the one spot where they can input that data, and then they can respond back to Kimberly on what that data means. And then from the way it would work from there is if you're in a departmental meeting, that's how your department's running. And then maybe Kimberly is part of the weekly leadership team meeting where they grab a chunk of their department scorecards and float them up to the leadership team scorecard. So now Kimberly is responsible for talking about the numbers that she had somebody else talk to her about, and she can with confidence talk about those numbers because the person in charge of them is talking to her about those numbers. So it just creates a good linear flow of the data from the starting point, the expert utilizing the apps, talking up to the higher up then bringing it up to their main group of team and talking about it from there. So I know we've talked about, all these different apps. We've talked a lot about different apps. Daryl wants every app we talk about. So these scorecards, and I'll show you an example. It's just a great way to get data in one spot. And I've been helping people with data and reporting for a very long time. And it's always the one question or the one problem of how do we see the data in one solid place? And people use Google Data Studios. They have apps for it. They have Dasharoo, I think is one. Dashboards where you can input data using Zaps or APIs. There's a lot of workarounds, but the scorecard has just been one great place. All right, let's put all the data from all these apps into one spot that we can see and track and come back to. So that's the beautiful spot about the scorecard. And you'll get to see an example here soon. Another way people will use KPIs is not just to track data, but to track performance. So a lot of times, if you have a job description, you might have roles and responsibilities for that job description. And then you might have key performance indicators to show whether or not that employee is doing their job correctly. So they might be responsible for certain KPIs. You'll see that a lot in sales reps. And we're going to show you an example of a sales one where you're expected to maintain a certain number of outreach attempts, a certain number of conversion of sales. So the scorecard then becomes kind of the answer to how well you're doing as a worker. And then all your workers combined, how well are you doing as a department? And then once again, you float that up to the top level, and it's how good you're doing as a company. So everything is just meant to track performance, how you're doing, how well everybody's doing. And as you start to see peaks and dips, you can ask the questions of, okay, why was this so low? And it's like, oh, well, it was Christmas week. Nobody was booking calls. And it's like, well, that makes sense. If it was the week after a conference or an event and it was that low, we might need to talk. But in those situations, you might see it spike, and you might see it spike 2 weeks after an event. You'd be like, okay, why did it spike 2 weeks after an event? And maybe marketing can tell you, oh, we did post email blast that dripped out over a couple of weeks. It looks like this email was the biggest email, had the most hits. So it's a great way to track the performance, either individually, department-wide, company-wide. It's super useful. And then we went through the 5-5-5 meetings where you could review your employees' performance under you. There's the and at these 5-5-5 meetings, you could then use these KPIs that you're tracking regularly anyways to help you facilitate with who you're giving the meeting to, how well they're performing in their job. You're like, okay, we can look at the metrics you're responsible for that you fill out weekly. It's already right here. Let's discuss those and see if you're measuring up to your responsibilities. So KPIs, we discussed the scorecard of the L10s. That's where we live with the Collab team, is in those L10 meetings. It's got the spot in there where you go through the scorecard. It says 5 minutes. I've been in meetings where it can be 15, 20 minutes, just depending on what you're talking about. All the finance meetings I'm in, their scorecard review takes forever because they're really talking about like the money of the company. So those conversations can get pretty deep, especially as you see some valleys and peaks in them. You're like, okay, what happened? Why is our profitability at a 5% right now instead of a 35%? So they really drill down on those. And then from there, you can raise them to issues. And you see like, this is an issue. Let's add it to the issues list to discuss, because we really need to determine what's going on with this scorecard metric. Another perfect thing, once you do start tracking these numbers on the scorecard, is you start to have over time a really easy to grab reference point of the data you're tracking. So no longer do you need to spend hours combing through these apps and programs, and maybe your 2 employees removed from whoever first started doing it. You now can go straight to the scorecard. You can say, okay, how did we do 2 years ago on this one line item versus how well we're doing now? How are we measuring up to those? You can compare this year to last year easily. And then one of my favorite things, I'll get asked a lot, people doing conferences, events, what are our sales? What are our booked calls that came from it? What are all these different things? You can go to the scorecard, you can review the dates. You can go, okay, it looks like after the event, we had this many booked calls. And then you can either set that as the baseline of your next event, or you can use it to help create your goal for the next event. It's like, this last time we had 100 booked calls. Our goal is 150. Easy place to find that. Yeah, exactly. So challenges, those numbers are great to have in scorecards, especially if you're doing challenges regularly. It's just a great place to have that. Perfect. So any questions on kind of the scorecard metrics? Any thoughts so far on how we're using them, how you want to use them?
You just use them for, oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
You just use them for tracking, like, what about like not data driven, like results, like maybe like behaviors, or like, can you use it for that too?
Yeah, I mean, you can use it to track anything you can like evaluate. So I'm trying to think of an example. Do you have one in mind, a specific example?
Well, I'm just thinking like not every position has like specific data that you can grab and be like, okay, yeah, you're like numbers driven. It's more like, it's different. I don't know. It's like more behavior based, or I don't know.
Yeah, you could definitely track that, just create a value system for it, and you can evaluate it each week of, okay, how on this value system we've created, maybe it's bad, good, and best. Like, how is it this week? Is it at a best? Is it at a good, or was it really bad? So as long as you have a way to interpret the value system, calling out the good, kudos. Yeah, at the Collab team, we have kudos. We have Golden Hook Awards, as we are pirates. So then we just actually track how many of those were given in a week. But yeah, it's about, you can create your own data to interpret.
Okay.
Daryl.
Couldn't find the mute. No, that was pretty much where I was going with it too. More offline ways to be able to utilize it. I like the kudos part of it. So that kind of speaks to what I was looking for.
Yeah.
But I didn't think about like tracking that.
Mm-hmm.
So if you get the, if you're tracking that for like, even for you guys that are pirates, what do you do with that data?
Well, in that situation, it's more of a team share. It's like, we want to celebrate the team together. So on our scorecard, we then highlight everybody that got a kudos that week, because our goal is just to help highlight people who are earning a reward, who are doing good for the team. So yeah, in that situation, it's not something we're using to evaluate someone's performance. It's an opportunity for us to share with each other a good thing about our work that somebody else noticed.
I get what you're saying, but like if you're adding up the kudos that everyone's getting at the end of the week, how are you sharing that with the group as a whole? Or are you, or is it just like in memo status, or is Aaron actually like spend money on you? I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah, so we'll track it quarterly, and at the end of the quarter, whoever has the most gets a reward. So as we review who got some that week, Aaron will go, all right, it looks like Ben's in the lead, because Ben was in the lead last quarter. Since he was in the lead last quarter, he's not getting any kudos this quarter. It's a little bit of a flawed system.
We're all coming for him this quarter.
Perfect. I'm just going to jump in here to a quick example. I love field trips. So this we took from a scorecard we helped set up for basically sales reps. And each rep comes to this meeting and they have to fill this out for themselves. So it's just the same data, but a different person, and then totals each week. So we're just looking at, how many appointments did you see? And then this would be basically like a proposal. You gave a proposal, how many of those were purchased? You gave a proposal for this, how many of those were purchased? And so on. And then how many moved on into something else? How many moved on to something else? So each week, these reps can come in here, fill out their own numbers, and then they can utilize that to determine how well these reps are doing. Do we have reps that are constantly underperforming, either by not seeing appointments or by not converting people? And you don't ever, we never want to think negatively on the first thought. So it's almost like, okay, let's just have a conversation with them. Let's see what's going on. And maybe you do find out they're getting the bottom of the barrel of the leads. They're not actually, maybe they're a new rep. They're not getting the highest leads. The highest leads are going to the best rep. So their performance might be just due to the leads they're getting. And they might actually be converting those leads well if they are getting the worst leads. So it's just a great way to start a conversation, not necessarily just looking at it and rating somebody good or bad just by the data, but it's a good starting point for, all right, let's discuss this. Let's see where we're at. Let's see what's going on. So we've used scorecards for so many different types of departments, so many different types of companies. And just like as we discussed the introduction to L10s, you don't really start to see issues until you develop that into your terminology. And then you start to understand things are issues and now they need to be added to the issues list. Whereas when you first look at it, you're like, I don't have any issues. Our company's perfect. You might look at this and be like, I don't know how to track my scorecard. One example, in the 100X team, I do a lot of the tech work, and we were trying to figure out when we first started Scorecard, what are some good numbers for us to track as a tech team? And we decided we wanted to track customer tech issues. And by deciding we wanted to track customer tech issues, we had to implement a better solution to handle customer tech issues so that it's not just randomly being thrown out in Slack, but we wanted to be able to say, okay, if somebody's having a customer tech issue, they need to fill out this form. And so by deciding on the scorecard metric we wanted to track, we actually in turn created a better process for the company to follow so that we could then track this scorecard better. And by creating the process, we then also created a place we could go to keep track of issues that keep coming up. So you're like, oh, this is weird. This is the same issue that happened 2 rows up. So maybe we need to do a deeper dive into what the bigger issue is. So you might not have a way to track the metric, and just by wanting to track the metric could help you create the processes and systems you need to have in place to actually up-level your work and be able to track the metric. It's one of the most fun ways I've seen this utilized is in the finance department of another company. They had terrible outstanding accounts, and they had 2 issues. They wanted to know how much was in their outstanding accounts and how to win them back. So we created the process to show who's outstanding and how much. And by creating that process, it also creates a list of who's outstanding and by how much, which then created an opportunity for somebody to call these people who are outstanding and know how much they're outstanding by and for what product and how long they're past due. So all these metrics we wanted to track turned into up levels for the company to then go back through their processes and accomplish what they in the end wanted to accomplish just by wanting to see the metric. I don't know if anybody's got any examples we can talk through of a metric they'd want to track that they're not currently tracking or not able to track.
Not exactly the question you just asked, but just another note on another thing that you can track that informs something else is like refund requests. If you just recently released a product and you realize after you've sold it that you have a lot of refund requests, it allows you to kind of think like, okay, like for some reason my customers aren't loving this product. Like then you can kind of think about where your niche is and like what you've put into this product and start kind of analyzing why it's not working. Maybe you go and you ask some of your customers a question or a poll about like why that's not working. But so then it helps you improve your products too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, when you start with companies, the guys running, they always want to know what's coming in and what's coming out. You know, whether that's sales, refunds, accounts payable, accounts receivable. So just getting dialed in on those numbers as a starting point, always a great idea, because then most goals you create as a company, you have those monetary goals. So as you start tracking money coming in, money coming out, you can start solidifying, okay, what do we need to change? You know, we want more money coming in, less money coming out.
We had a situation with a third-party team that came in and they were doing like some really cool Facebook Messenger chat stuff where they were just like helping to love and serve the people in our challenge Facebook group really well. And one of the things that they noticed, because like they were only supposed to go after leads who've been in there for 30 days. So that means they finished the challenge and maybe they kind of fell off. So we're going to give them a little extra love. And one of the things they found out was only 44% of the people in our group were active members. And of those, like most of them had already bought into our higher ticket program. And so that would be a really, great metric to track, like just how many people are in our Facebook group, how many are active, and like, what do you do with the 56% who are in there, but they're no longer active. Like, how can we re-engage? And so that would be a really like super fun thing to like assign someone to, or a team to try to get engagement from those people who we can probably serve with something, because we have like a lot of different things. It's not just the high ticket thing. Like we can help with this and with that, and just like help them feel empowered and like go for their thing. So I don't know how we'd go about tracking that, but it seems like that could really help our community, help us grow and reach some peeps who may have fallen out. Because, you know, you put a lot in on the front end to acquire these leads, and we don't want them to just sit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a fun, issue to solve. I mean, you got this group of people, and you do want to find out how many are active. And so by finding out how to get that data set, you might actually be able to find out who the inactive people are, and being able to either target those people or find a way to get them to re-engage in the group. Honestly, with what I do in work, Facebook is my stopping point. So I don't do anything once Facebook's involved. I haven't been on Facebook in 12 years, so I really know nothing about how that all works. But it is fun. Like you said, once you found that out from the company, you're like, oh, okay, let's add that as, our next goal in our company. Maybe it's somebody's quarterly rock. How can we determine these numbers? Maybe Facebook has reporting. I'm sure you're not the only one that's done it. Maybe, I like just being a fancy Google search away from an answer. But then as you get the numbers, you then can find out how you can, win those people back, how you can solve the issue that getting the numbers wants to solve.
I have one that seems very complicated, and we've been wanting to like track where our sales come from and which ones are bringing us the best like results. So we've like been trying a bunch of different avenues. It's like, but there's like data from so many like things. It's like, how do you bring them all together to like track and figure out like, this process is like bringing us nothing, and this is this one's doing better. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you'd find out what the sales are you want to track, and who you're trying to tie them to, and by either utilizing lead sources or separate funnel pages that you can track where they came from. There still is, especially in more complex situations, a little bit of manual data entry that takes place to find these numbers. But if you're talking about finding out that one of your lead sources is getting 50% of sales and one of them is getting 0% of sales, then cutting out that one at 0 and increasing the one at 50 could have just saved you or earned you way more money than actually getting the data takes. I know for this finance one that this lady does, it takes her almost a full day to get these finance numbers because the company's everywhere.
Right.
It's like she spends all day doing a scorecard for them. But they can then report on it with accuracy.
Right. So is there like a mechanism to, like, I know sometimes when you buy something, it's like, how did you hear about us? Like you're adding that to like even order forms. Is that even possible? Like adding like drop downs or something where they're like, who do you talk to? Or I don't even know.
Yeah, there are those possibilities, but whenever you put that on the customer, they're a little more hesitant to actually do that.
Okay.
So depending on how these people are acquiring the sales, like if they're on the phone with people, transacting over the phone, if they're sending people links, like you can actually give them their own links that would compile that data for you.
So like give them their own order form link and like have that connected to like who they are.
Yeah.
Okay. I know we're just testing out a lot of different methods in Crushing You, and it's like we don't have the data to know like which ones are really bringing us in the best leads.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Well, for, Infusionsoft, and full disclosure, as Jamie and I discuss all this, I'd set all this up for Jamie. So in Infusionsoft, we do that for the CE team. They have their own order forms that auto applies a promo code
Okay.
when somebody purchases through them, so that they can start tracking how many sales CE brings in through their communications with customers.
Oh, I didn't.
And so it's the exact same product they're getting. It's just their own unique order form that applies a promo code in the background that we can then run reports on.
Okay, so you already have something built like this in the system. We just need to apply it to what we're doing.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, you know who I'm hitting up in chat. Thank
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. I'd love to help solve that for you. Ben actually did the CE one, so I'll just tell Ben to do.
I see how you just delegated that.
When in doubt, hand it to Ben.
He's gonna get
Got
another
it.
kudo. Y'all better watch out.
He is.
Oh, thank you.
Cool. Yeah, that's a fun one. Savannah, I know you've been in a lot of these meetings too, as we do the L10 format. What's one of your favorite part about the scorecard?
I love watching the progress over a course of time. So just looking at like in CE, for example, you're looking a lot of time at like how many requests you've solved. And so seeing like on a challenge week, seeing how big those numbers get and just knowing that your team rocked it. So then you have a chance to kind of like give group kudos and everyone feels really good. And and even really like you give that number and then everyone goes like, oh my gosh, like that week was so hard. Like we need more help. Like, it really informs solutions to things at the same time as kind of giving yourself a pat on the back. I like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is fun. And some people are linear like this and enjoy seeing the data like this. Not everybody is. Some people love graphs, charts, any different way, but I'm with Savannah. I like seeing the numbers. You can just read left to right. It's just fun seeing them over time. It's also a great way to challenge yourself. On our customer tech issues, one of our line items is average days to solve. So when we first started the sheet, we were up there at like 4 or 5 days. And every time we review that number, it made us feel bad that it was taking us so long to solve these customer tech issues. So that made us respond better in solving customer tech issues that were like down to 2.6 days, average days to solve. And that includes weekends. We're not going to solve a problem on a weekend. So it was just fun. It's a fun way to push yourself too, as you do want to hit a better and better metric, and the ones that you can actually have a say in being better pushes you to do better. So do you guys go through any scorecards currently? Daryl, you just got set up in L10. You guys still setting up a scorecard?
I couldn't get my mute to go. It was killing me. No, so like this part is harder for me to give any feedback on because I'm still in the beginning stages. So now I'm at a point to where I'm just like listening to all this. Well, all of you that are actually using it right now, because I want to implement a lot of this.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
So I have ideas, but I'm gonna talk to Ben about that. I'm not giving him kudos, but I'm gonna talk to him.
Yeah, you talk to Ben. Share your ideas with him. Jamie, I know you guys switched to ETW. I'm not sure if you ever actually did the L10 format of L10 meetings before that.
Yeah.
But do you enjoy reviewing the KPIs, or as they're called, drivers?
Yeah, I feel like that really helps us know, like focus, like make sure we're working on our important drivers. Because I think sometimes we can get stuck in like doing things that aren't driving our business because they're like, maybe in your face, or you're like, the little things. So having that like weekly meeting where we focus on our like, maybe 3 most important drivers, and we've identified what a 10 looks like in that area. And we're like, where are we at right now? And what can we be doing, like actually putting on our priority or to-do list to actually make that number go up to a 10, right? So that it really helps us focus on the week. But there are definitely elements of the L10 that we miss, like this, that help us a little bit more with the scoring. It's a little bit more subjective, I feel like, in the ETW. We're focusing on a big number of like how much income are we bringing in? And so that can feel a little bit defeating, because you're like, oh man, we're not hitting our numbers, but like we're doing all these amazing things. So like tracking the little things and knowing where you're at in that, like you said, gives you the motivation to be like, okay, we're making progress somewhere, right? So I do miss some elements of the L10 that we don't have in the ETW.
You can also, one props that I'll give to ETW is that you can put in as many KPIs as you want to like be tracking. And what's fun about that, if you, it divides it by department. And so if you're a more competitive person, it's kind of fun, because when you are going into your dashboard, you get to see everyone else's dashboard as like a pie chart. So you get to see how good your team is doing compared to everyone else in the company. And like CE, I don't want to say it doesn't count for you guys, but because I know that their customer satisfaction, they don't have like a super trackable way to do it yet, but theirs is always in the green. And so I always feel like super good when we open up the dashboard and it's like, oh yeah, CE's in the green.
Right? That I'm always like, man, like we should be in the green. Ours is like more like based on that high number. Like we need more KPIs that help us like show that green. So we are talking about like what those KPIs are for our specific roles and responsibilities, and adding those to the thing.
Yeah, give yourself some wins.
Yes, we need those.
Yeah, it is always a little difficult when your KPI is monetary and everybody's just looking at the sales number. It's either just like stagnant, it's not where it should be, it's a small hill,
right?
Because there are other ways you want to show that you're winning in work. Like you might have some awesome customer testimonials that just came in. Let's showcase those. How many new great testimonials did we get last week? Well, our sales might have been stagnated, but look at these 100 people who have been affected by what we did sell them 2 months ago.
Right. I think that's harder too, especially with the two sides of the business, because I feel like when 100X is winning, like Crush It isn't doing sales because 100X is doing sales. So it's like we're constantly like going like this. So
yeah,
looking for ways for that steady flow to come in.
Yeah. Great. Kimberly, did you have any awesome aha moments to share? You've been doing L10s for a little bit now, and sure you got an awesome scorecard that you've been developing over the last month or so.
Yeah, we got a lot of scorecards, and like moment of confession, it almost makes it feel better to like say it out loud, but we had our last L10 and Aaron was going to hop off to go like do the challenge thing. And he's like, okay, can you drive this one? I'm like, sure. So I've like got all my ducks in a row for the meeting. I'm like super pumped about it. Like got my Slack reminders, like making sure everybody's reported their numbers. You guys, I got there and my numbers weren't in. I was like, for real though. Oh man, it was so bad. It was like that dream where you're showing up at school in your underwear. It was so bad. And I blamed it on my first miracle morning. I said, no more exercise. That's it. It's the exercise. It's the first time I've exercised in a year. So that was definitely the variable there. But it was like humiliating to not have my numbers. But the reason why, not only was it mortifying, but also like when we have, like I'm collecting numbers from all the teams and I'm bringing to this weekly meeting. So like Visionary doesn't know who did what this week if I don't have my numbers there, if any of us don't have our numbers there. So But so like there's that bit. So like always make sure you have your numbers. Now like my stuff is gonna blow up and be all in my face, reminding me to put my numbers in every Tuesday so that never happens again. But another thing that we learned recently, like we had so we have two different sales teams for the same product. One does sell by chat, the other does like a phone call. And they were kind of like marketing team was pushing like, hey, how come these guys aren't selling by chat? Like they need to sell by chat. Why is their conversions like at 2%? Like this is awful. And I'm like, they're killing it. I mean, I don't know why their numbers don't look good. So we did some digging, and what we found was so the thing is 7 days, but on the day 5, they were being offered the call with the call team. And so it was literally like the rug was being pulled out from under them because they never had a chance to make the sale. It was like, here's your offer. Your next step, book your call. Well, the moment they book a call, they go over to the other team. So this team didn't stand a chance. And I'm like, wait a second, the fact that they made any sales like this, like that's awesome. So I kind of snuck in. I'm like, all right, we're not going to change the funnel or anything. I just kind of snuck in and I was like, hey, tell your leads not to book a call. Just do it. Just tell them like, don't book the call. Just like get with me. We'll make sure your application is in. I'll help you. Like, don't book that call yet. And they did. And they went from like, their scorecard was like 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1. And then they did this like secret underground, like, shh, don't book the call thing. 7 sales that week from our chat team. And it was just like, not only was it awesome, it felt great. Like they were elated because they feel like Jamie said, like they haven't been showing up, and that stinks, like they're loving and serving every day, even on weekends, and their numbers aren't reflecting that they're doing as awesome as they are. So having that little pivot. So now I'm like, hey, marketing team, go fix that funnel. Like we need day 5, 6, and 7, like remove the call link. My girls are going to have it in the back pocket. Like forget it. Leads are going to have to like sell by chat or book a call with them. Like, we're going to change this thing up. So I'm really excited about that. It was an incredible opportunity for growth for our team, but also like what Jamie mentioned was so important. Like just feeling like you have something to show for the hours and faithfulness and devotion that you're pouring into the company. Like that is a huge deal. Like numbers matter, but people matter more, I think. I mean, they kind of both have to matter the same or you don't have a company, but anyway, it's really important. So I was excited to just kind of see that unfold, and like by our next meeting next week, we should have all that stuff situated and we can see like awesome numbers from the sell by chat team. And then the call peeps are probably going to be like, hey, where are all our leads? But we'll figure that out too.
That's great to hear.
I had a question.
Yeah, Daryl.
Jamie, are you using scorecards to try to problem solve what's going on with both sides?
I wouldn't say we're using scorecards right now. We're just trying to collect our data and then possibly turn it into maybe a scorecard. But right now we're just kind of like trying to find where all of our data is.
Okay. That's what I was actually curious about, because I'm having some of the same challenges, but I'm so early on with L10s and working out how to use the scorecard that I feel like I'm literally just in data collection right now so that I can put something together for that. So I just kind of curious if you're doing more, that you were already moving forward with that part of it.
No, we're in data collection mode for a lot of things.
Sorry, guys. And that's where it becomes, oh my goodness. That's where it becomes important for the leadership teams to come together too. Because like you said, like you guys are noticing numbers low. It's nice to have everyone come together so you can look at like, okay, like last week there was, we were selling this product for this group of the company. And then we noticed that sales went down on that. Like what can we do together to mitigate?
Yeah. And I love Kimberly's example. It showed a perfect situation of these are bad numbers. You can either come in here and look at that team and go, you guys are terrible. What are you doing wrong? Or you can come in there and be like, that doesn't look good. Let's find out why first. Let's have a conversation. Let's do the research. And then you find out why and you fix it, and numbers are great. And it turns out your people weren't doing a bad job. You just had some systems to correct. So it's a great way to really showcase, honest scorecard numbers aren't there to bully people or to call people out necessarily. It's just like, if they're bad, let's figure out the problem, let's solve it. And, you know, rarely does it come up where like that actually is that person's problem and we need to remove that person. That's not, maybe 10% of the time that might happen. It usually almost always leads to an issue that needs to be solved. And just by having that data in the scorecard, you then were able to solve an issue you didn't even know you had.